done that. The city got them all.
So will they count that under their side, or we didn't count that? They were originally issued them.
Just like come take it at a later time. That's fine. They did. Is this your copy?
Good morning.
Got the trade?
Yeah, but when I said tonight, in the morning, and Tom don't know she was the last year which is more that's 2 years. And she's still
That'll work, looks good on you there.
That's an Auburn. That's an Auburn orange. That's not.
Well, Mary, you got it on, but that's got a little hundred there.
It's Union Orange.
We'll know if he starts hollering War Eagle. We'll know if he starts hollering War Eagle.
I pay tuition at Ole Miss as best I can do for my daughter.
Boy, that was a disappointment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're on the plane day.
I also pay tuition for UK for my son, so no, I went to Eastern in the University of Central Florida.
Did she like it down there, Tony? Did she like Ole Miss?
With my daughter, she did. She's still down there, so she must have liked it.
Home for the week.
You just got the insurance to the fire, or station to insurance.
That's the budget transfer.
Oh, I see it, go ahead and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk will call the roll.
Masters, Craycraft.
Present.
Pasley.
Here.
Tom Copeland.
Present.
Clinton.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
And Miller is out.
We were expecting a pastor to lead us in the invocation. I don't see him showing up. If anyone would like to do that, we can go ahead and do that. If not, we'll proceed on to the,
I'd love to.
okay. Harry Wilson, our CSEP director, will lead us in the invocation. Please stand for the pledge.
Good morning, Father, and thank you for this day. We invite you to be with us. We invite you to open our hearts and our minds to your will. And may we please you in all that we say and do. Amen.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item will be approval of the minutes for November the 12th, 2024. We have a motion by Magistrate Clinton, is there a second? Second, Magistrate Davis. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the budget transfers, and it looks like there is an A and B.
That's
No.
cash transfer.
There's one page of it.
Motion approved. Second.
We have a motion, Magistrate Constable, second, Magistrate Pasley. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Fire insurance.
The next item 7 will be the approval of cash transfers, and there are 2 of those. A and B.
Motion to approve both of them.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Magistrate Craycraft. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the bills list, number 8. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve for discussion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Magistrate Davis. Any discussion?
There's the only discussion that I have is back to the EMS bill that we have on there in regards to the,
Pages.
it's on page 2 for $322,154.30. Have you had any discussions with them in regards to EMS and the billing that we received?
We have had an ongoing discussion, and unfortunately, right now, we're still trying to decipher where the extra cost came from, what prompted them, and so what I think what we can do to get this resolved. The two things I think we need to get done. We need to get the 911 committee back up and running, and the EMS committee. It hasn't met since. Basically since COVID.
March of 22.
Yeah. So, and that's why that is actually on the discussion later, is to see how you want to approach this. but
Yeah, I mean, I know I'd emailed back and forth and got a little bit more information, but, you know, looking at the invoice, our last quarter invoice we received, total expenses were 946, and then the following 3 months, the expenses went up to 1.5 million and some change. So, I mean, that's roughly approximately about a $600,000 increase. Now, 300,000 of that is from the capital expenses, I would say, that was on there, but, there's still another $300,000 increase on top of that, roughly. I'm using whole numbers here, but
There was some discussion back in February about a $400,000 cap. Is that not for real or not?
that was for 1 year.
That was for 1 year, for the fiscal year 21. We could, in October of 2020, we agreed to a $450,000 cap for that fiscal year. And then in the spring of 2021, we agreed, the committee came up, agreed to, and the court, the city commission agreed to a permanent agreement. That's where we came in. We removed the cap, we did a 39% share of the deficit. But that agreement also requires, if I'm not mistaken, requires for them to prepare every year a capital budget for capital expenses. Now, I don't know if that was ever done, because we haven't had a committee meeting in 2.5 years. None this term. We're almost 2 years deep into this term, the fiscal quarter. So I don't know if there's a capital budget. I've never seen it. We've never been presented with one. I have no idea what. So I'm sure legitimate expenses for the EMS related, but I couldn't tell you what it's for. I mean, Daniel, what would that? So this would have been. We would have been due a quarterly bill. Is that right?
We're due a quarterly bill, but it's still.
What had the last? What would that?
Our last quarterly bill, our bill was 209,000, and with the amendments of taking out the capital, this was going to put us at the deficit, or 451,000. Well, that was with the capital in there. Without the capital, well, the 332,000. So roughly 122,000 more in deficit on the quarter.
Well, I think the conclusion we came to yet last time, I think, was Master Lance's suggestion, which I agree with, which is that we need to go ahead and pay what we would have expected and budgeted to pay on the quarterly payment, and then defer payment of the additional amount until we were able to analyze it, maybe the committee meets or whatever the case. But I don't have any problem paying what we would have anticipated and budgeted for. But just throw another six-figure sum on there and say, well, we got to pay it. I have no idea what it's for.
well, and it surprised everybody.
Well, being transparent, and Fran gave me this morning, because she didn't receive it till late, because I had questioned, what was the extra 100 and some thousand for, and they received from Alicia there during the quarter the following occurred that was not the previous quarter, were 7 paychecks instead of 6, a management software purchase of 22,000, and there's some additional stuff. There are several equipment repairs, EMS supply cost increases that I'm not going to be able to explain to the exact dollar amount. If you need further explanation, let me know. So that was given to me this morning. So.
And part of the bigger picture problem is they had ordered, I forget now, 2 or 3 ambulances, buggies, whatever you want to call them. And somewhere along the line, I knew nothing about it, and I think nobody in the county government knew anything about it. So supposedly, then what happened was the manufacturer came back to the city. They weren't supposed to be delivered till 26 or 27. So then the manufacturer came back and said they need a deposit. The city went ahead and so that is the big increase on our EMS contribution, is that our 39% of that deposit. which wasn't planned for, it wasn't budgeted at all. So that creates another problem, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm thinking, in order to not let this ever happen again, we need to get this committee up and running. So.
We have the, you know, and I saw your email this morning, Judge. I know we talked about this, I think this is the third or fourth time in fiscal court. We've already got a committee seated on our side. You co-chair as judge. I was appointed to it at the beginning of this term. I think Magistrate Pasley's the other magistrate member. I don't know who on the city other than the mayor will be on it if they need to reappoint. But as far as we're, I mean, just up to you and the mayor whether you want to schedule a meeting.
It needs to be done as soon as possible, and that was part of my question, two parts. One is, I know that your name is still on there, Greg Elkins was on there. So who do we want to appoint to that committee?
Okay, I think this is like Groundhog Day. As when the beginning of this term, January 2023, when we reappointed the committees, I was reappointed. You're already the co-chair. Your position is judge executive. And then Magistrate Pasley, I understand, Ernest, correct me if I'm wrong, Magistrate Pasley was appointed to the seat that was held by Greg Elkins. So our side of the committee is appointed and seated. It just comes down to when you and the mayor will schedule, if you'll schedule a joint meeting.
Do you know how long those term appointments
It
are?
would be for the 4-year term of this fiscal court. So we're 2 years deep into the term. We've been on the committee the whole time. There's been no meeting.
Also, kind of pertain to the same thing. So right now you have the mayor, the judge, you have 2 magistrates, 2 commissioners. Do you want to add to that? It was kind of been requested. Do we need to add to that EMS the 2 fire chiefs?
Well, typically in those meetings, both fire chiefs would attend. I think Chief Whiteley and his predecessor was there. I know Chief Asbury, I think, always attended. I don't know if there was ever a meeting he didn't attend. So they always attended and were available for discussion and to answer questions. So I don't think they need to be members of the committee. I think they need to be members of the body.
Okay.
This body and across the street. I don't think having the chiefs on the board is going to make any difference. But they're always there, or they should be.
With the question at hand in regards to the bills list, let me offer a motion, or amend my motion, to that we approve the bills list as presented, except for on the EMS quarterly bill, we pay even $200,000 of that bill. And then that gives the money, the city that we were expecting to pay, and then allows you all time to formulate that committee to evaluate these other expenses along with the capital.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have any discussion? Can you help me with this, Fran? This 322, that doesn't include any of the capital expenses?
That's the whole point for all of us, is that it is more than anyone had anticipated, and the reasons that have been presented to us really don't come up to the additional billing. Am I on the same page with you, Daniel?
Yes. The total expenses for this new quarter were $1.5 million. The previous were $940,000.
For the quarter of the year.
For the quarter.
For the quarter.
So you're talking a $600,000, roughly a $600,000 increase for the quarter.
And 300,000 of that was the capital.
Gotcha, okay.
And 300 is what they're saying the capital is, but that still leaves an additional roughly $300,000 in other expenses that we're not aware of. So if we pay the 200, that at least gets them some cash in their hands, and then that gives you all time to get the committee together to figure out the rest of it.
So do we know what exactly that amount would be?
No.
Okay.
We would have no idea. The city would have to tell us, and they're,
Okay. Okay. Any more discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. So the bills list was approved with that change. Get on to that later. Next item is, item 10 will be the pre-authorized bills for November the 4th, November 13, November 19, and November the 22nd. For your information. Next item will be public comments. Karis.
Everyone knows why I'm here. I'm the employee of the Friends of Lower Harwich Creek. I am an employee of the Friends of Lower Harwich Creek, and I'm here to address some comments that have been made at previous fiscal court meetings. Just for a little background, Lower Harwich Creek is a 441-acre nature preserve in agreement with the Clark County Winchester Heritage Commission and Clark County Fiscal Court. The Friends of Lower Harwich Creek manages 4 non-contiguous properties that total 441 acres. I am their employee, and I'm the only employee. I am paid for 20 hours a week, and I work weekends, nights, early mornings, not as early as previously stated, but I do my best. Are there things that I can improve upon? Of course. Are there things that we as a group could do better? Of course. Communication, yes, we can communicate better. To get in the meat of things though, in 2015, after some discussion, Dr. Tom Rice agreed to sell approximately 85 acres of property along Lower Harwich Creek to Clark County Fiscal Court for future use as Lower Harwich Creek Nature and Heritage Preserve. Because of the area's cultural, historic, and ecological significance, the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund Board approved a grant request later that year in November 2015 for approximately 85 acres. To be clear, Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund is not taxpayer-based, taxpayer-funded, as incorrectly stated by Mr. Brandon Hampton, who leases Dr. Tom Rice's property, also known as the Marksman LLC property. He stated this during the public comment of the September 26, 2024 Clark County Fiscal Court meeting. Revenue for Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund comes from the sale of Kentucky Nature license plates, unmined minerals tax on coal, and environmental fees. No taxpayer dollars were spent to purchase any Lower Harwich Creek property, nor have taxpayer dollars been contributed toward the management of preserved property. Management funds come from donations and endowment contributions that are not affiliated with Clark County Fiscal Court. Clark County Fiscal Court obtained an appraisal for 85 acres of $4,860 per acre. Before a deed could be executed, Dr. Rice sold 3.39 acres from the original 85-acre tract, which included 250 feet of road frontage. That sale left only 12 feet of road frontage and 77 acres to be sold to the county. Therefore, potential violations of planning and zoning regulations had to be remediated, thus lengthening the time it took to purchase the property. He had previously stated that somehow the length of time somehow affected them monetarily. I'm not sure how that is. But anyway, eventually an exemption from those regulations was granted because the future conservation easement to be executed by Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund Board prevented land development. So because There's a conservation easement. Planning and zoning, Clark County Planning and Zoning said it's okay to only have 12 feet of road frontage because no land development is going to occur on the 77 acres. Clark County, Kentucky purchased 77.4 acres from Marksman LLC on January 16, 2017. You've been given the deed book and pages. On that same day, a deed of conservation easement was executed between Clark County Fiscal Court and the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund Board. Because of the lack of adequate access, Dr. Rice allowed Lower Harrods Creek Nature and Heritage Preserve representatives to access the 77 acres through Marksman LLC property. His farm manager, Mr. Brandon Hampton, was to be notified by Lower Harrods Creek Management for access. Mr. Hampton felt inconvenienced by getting short notice on one occasion, first claiming he was notified at 6:30 a.m. at the September 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting, and then revising that and stating he was notified at 6 a.m. at the October 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting. Despite Mr. Hampton's false claims that this was an ongoing issue, management has never contacted him at those times. Mr. Hampton also fabricated things like our gates were being left open, our gates were being cut locks off of. Immediately after an appraisal conducted by Mr. Brett Frazier, a land protection specialist with the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, on adjacent property on July 30th, 2019, Mr. Hampton claimed that someone left a gate open on property owned by Marksman LLC. I, as the current Lower Harrods Creek Preserve Manager, closed that gate in question with two witnesses, Mr. Frazier and Mrs. Martha Claire Sickle, the former Preserve Manager. Mr. Hampton or Mr. Rice contacted Ms. Sickle to inform her that the Lower Harrods Creek Management would no longer have access through property owned by Marksman LLC. Despite Dr. Rice's bad faith during the purchase of the property by selling that road frontage, Lower Harrods Creek Management sought permission from the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves to allow Marksman LLC to graze 33 of the 77-acre tract. Office of Kentucky Nature Preserve permitted the transitional use since bison eat grass and do not eat or disturb new trees and bushes like hickory, blue ash, white oaks, surfaceberry, anyway. Following the property inspection in early 2020, Office of Kentucky Nature Preserve staff observed that a portion of Marksman LLC property was permitted, that the portion Marksman LLC was permitted to graze had been mowed. In April 22nd, 2020 letter to Dr. Tom Rice, Zeb Weiss, former chairman of the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund Board, and former director of the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, clearly stated that it is common practice to allow agricultural activities on a property when it is first purchased. Again, that is from that April 22nd, 2020 letter. Oh gosh, we got that up, sorry. Marksman LLC was to remove bison from the 77-acre tract and that it no longer be mowed. Remember, nature preserves are not meant to look like agricultural land. We are not preserving agricultural land, we are preserving nature. Therefore, it may not look like Marksman LLC expects it and his representatives expect it to look. Lower Harrods Creek Management has not planted non-native invasive species or cut fences down while removing these species. A trip down Quisenberry Lane will show that Marksman LLC does not control invasive species or maintain fencing with other adjacent property owners. So to claim that we're not doing something when they themselves are not doing something seems counterproductive to me. On November 5th, 2020, I contacted Mr. Hampton to gain full access to the 77-acre tract from the 12-foot passageway on Quisenberry Lane. It's not an easement, it's a passageway. To gain rightful access would have required LHC management to remove fencing incorrectly installed by Marksman LLC, and access to the 77 acres was rescinded. Since it had not been installed on LHC property without permission from LHC management, the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, or Clark County Fiscal Court. Mr. Hampton was unintelligible and belligerent during a meeting the following day, so I was unable to discuss access matters or management with him. During the September 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting, Mr. Hampton stated he received zero response No responded emails, no responded text message, no responded emails, end quote, since COVID began. The last communication from Mr. Hampton that I have was a November 19th, 2020 email in which he acknowledged the inaccuracies in his fencing. He is quoted as saying in that email, "We have measured out boundaries and contacted the contractor, I'll redact his name, on a fence line, and we are on the schedule to have new fence posts punched in and fence line to be erected. We are offering access to the property from our entrance until completion with proper notice." It continues on with some contact information. Shortly thereafter, however, Dr. Rice or Mr. Hampton contacted Ms. Sippel and again rescinded access by Lower Harris Creek Management, which is essentially me. And again, at the October 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting, Mr. Hampton said, after a 2000 to 2004, I stand before you after that letter of removal. We respected it, and we have not heard one single word from anybody of this preserve. No contact, no reaching out. About what is Lower Harris Creek Management to contact Marksman LLC, I don't know. There's been no further contact from Marksman LLC or representatives. Mr. Hampton stated that he would like to be reinstated as land manager of the Rice Tract, which would be difficult because he's never been manager of Lower Harris Creek, so he couldn't be reinstated. Also, during the September 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting, Mr. Hampton stated that no one from the group has been on the property for 4 years, which is false because I've been on the property, as has Ms. Sippel. If there are trespassers on Marksman LLC property, Dr. Rice or his representative should contact law enforcement. No member of LHC management has any official capacity that would prevent people from accessing Marksman LLC property. At the October 26, 2024 fiscal court meeting, Mr. Hampton stated, while referencing Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, or KHLCF, that if they give you $15,000 for invasive species to eradicate it every year, they want to make sure that they was a good steward of the money. Again, the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund Board, and the Clark County Fiscal Court do not contribute financially to the management of Lower Harris Creek property. We raise all our own money. Also at that September 24th, 2024 meeting, or 26th, 2024 meeting, I'm almost done, a gentleman represented the Gay family on Old Stone Church Road. He did not state his name, but did indicate that the gentleman to his left was his father. He asked for, quote, a little more consideration out of pure kindness, end quote, when LHC accesses the Hegman property, which we go into further detail. But that property was donated in 2019 by Dan and Beth Hegman to the county for the specific use by Lower Harris Creek Nature and Heritage. The last time LHC management visited the Hegman property was November 8th of 2023. Limited visitation began in August 2020 after Mr. Gay threatened me by saying he would shoot my truck and slash my tires. He also stated that he was going to throw nails on the road, but then stated he was actually going to get some thugs from Cincinnati to do it for him. The Gays have blocked access to the Hegman property, which is owned by the county, and it makes it difficult to make repairs to the structure or maintain the property. Also, recently, Mr. Clark Gay accused me of changing the locks on the Old Stone Church. I've never done that before. I don't have the skills to do that. Maybe I could learn. I have never stepped inside the rock fence surrounding the Old Stone Church, let alone change the locks. I respect the Old Stone Church as a place of worship, not as a tourist attraction. I have given consideration every single time that I have gone down there, and I have even met with Mr. Gay prior to our first meeting, going down to the Hegman house and checking things out. I actually went to his house and did knock on the door and introduce myself, but then he run. So I don't expect any response or comments. I feel like if someone gets in front of a body twice and says things that are false, as I pointed out here, that is my duty to get up and correct whatever has been said.
other comments is Vicki DeBerry.
Good morning. My name is Vicki DeBerry. I'm here on the Red River Road Bridge issue. It's been 3 months that nothing has been done. And I know that you, Mr. Yates, was supposed to be having a meeting with CSX. But our concerns are still safety of being out on that roadway. Right now, at any time, we come through, there's guys down there shooting the rocks as you come by. There's shell casings all over the creek crossing down there. Last week we came through and you could hear like a machine gun going, and the guys were there putting their gun up. Now there's someone sleeping down there of a night in a car. Has been for probably a month now. They come of an evening and they're there the next morning. So that same car, and it's all, I'm assuming they're sleeping in it unless they're leaving it parked and going somewhere. But there's nowhere around there but the woods and land. And then our neighbor that we were worried about passing did pass a couple of weeks ago. And the coroner came out to pick him up. And do you think he came the way around? No. He put him in his body bag, took him from his door, down the neighborhood, crossed the bridge, had to scoop dirt and rocks out of the way, get on, and put him in the vehicle. That was very disrespectful to the deceased, and it was very disrespectful to his family. This bridge is a mess and nothing is being done. And there's a lot of issues out there. So do you have any updates or?
Well, there was supposed to be, we've been trying to get a meeting with CSX. Finally, there was a meeting scheduled yesterday at 10:30, a Zoom team meeting, video meeting. And at the last minute, CSX sent and said one of the main players had a medical situation, so they canceled that meeting. But here's where it stands. We're still trying to get the railroad to commit to something. What is, we to this day, I don't have any idea what their intentions are. We're trying to get that. Now, I think a couple things have happened. Of course, the power plant people, he's going to take your power. They've agreed that they will allow any emergency vehicle through there. They will allow basically the residents to go through there when the low water crossing is flooded. Also, there is another resident out there that goes to work 9 o'clock at night, works all night, gets back in the morning. The power plant has agreed that she has their phone number at the plant. They will accommodate her. They will actually, I guess, go down, unlock the gate, and let her go through. Because I think last time the gate was supposed to be open until 11 o'clock at night, and I think they closed it at 8:30 or 9 o'clock that day, which caught her. So that's what prompted that. So the power plant people have been great.
Well, they have now. They don't want us back there. They said people's going everywhere. They have, my husband had to call Troy Clem and beg him to let the funeral service through to the cemetery so they didn't have to come those curvy roads. He did not want to do that. The power plant didn't want that. We should not have to be dealing with these issues. And Mr. Robinson that passed away, his wife should not have to deal with all of this instead of being able to grieve with these issues. We have safety issues, but something needs to be done. We're getting into the dead of winter. I know those salt trucks are not going to be able to get back there and keep it done. We have a body of water that goes from here to there that runs across the road coming out of the power plant. It's wet now from all this rain. But when it gets 20 degrees, it's going to freeze. Somebody's going to slide off that road. Is somebody going to sit there and keep it salted? No. we have to have that bridge accessible. And I feel like if you can't get on a CSX, then you all need to figure out a way to get us a temporary bridge across it. I don't care if you put a semi-truck trailer, lift it up off the bridge, let us go through, but something needs to be done. I mean, 3 months and there's no progress.
Absolutely. Well, not on the bridge. One question that came up, and I think I'm going to ask Mansley here to help explain it, but there was some talk about building a temporary gravel road from the bridge up to the power plant entrance, and I don't think it was feasible. Is that kind of what we saw out there?
Is it all right to engage a special meeting or have any idea what? This is a special meeting, it's not a regular call meeting, they've been sued twice, I don't want to be sued again.
I'm not gonna see you, Ernest.
So we went out there, we walked the property, I had sent an email trying to reach out to some of the Berry family. I knew at one time there was a gravel lane in my mind that went to that graveyard. And looking on the topographical map, one thing that it does not show is the entrance road into the plant from the new bridge that they built. And it's probably got 35, 40 foot of fill on it. And it's kind of deceiving. And when we got out there, we took William Ballard from the water board, Mr. Clean, myself, and the road superintendent went out there. And it's just not feasible. And if we had the resources to get across the Berry Holler where it cuts up, the water lines in there. So we had to move the water line. So all you all out there would lose your water. You know, so city water on the road. And it's just not feasible. I mean, it would take a major excavation company half a year, you know. You'd almost have to drill and blast that one knob off to get enough fill to get across there. And it was deceiving. We were hopeful that the company that owns it was open to it. They took us back there and discussed it with us. And it's just not feasible.
That money could go toward the bridge.
So
You know, instead of doing that, and then, I mean, I don't know how y'all's money works, don't want to know, but is there no way that you can start working on that bridge, have CSX pay you back? Because most CSX is going to say is we're not going to do it, and then what happens?
That's the big question.
I think they just feel their own wind.
So, I mean, I just feel like there's no progress. And it's 3 months, and now we're in the heart of winter.
We need to take that field that he was talking about and just throw it in that damn bridge and be done with it, because the train is dead.
Well, the train doesn't come through there, so, you know, I don't know if CSX will sign it over or what they'll do, but I mean, we're still very concerned because, I mean, safety issues, I mean.
One of the things too that I'm trying to get straightened out right now, the White Contract down to Red River is a state road. So I have contacted them about plowing that road, icing and everything. I haven't got it's not resolved. So I don't know that, maybe the county's gonna have to step in and maintain those roads through when we have a snow problem. Because for the state, that's secondary, Class C roads, so they won't, that'll be the last ones that they clean.
And then the Muddy Creek Road is gonna be the last.
And that's also a state road.
Right, so we have no way out. I mean, because East Kentucky is not wanting us to go through.
They have very strong security concerns.
And I understand that, yeah.
But I think the big issue right here is trying to get a dialogue started with the railroad. That's been the problem. And I know that most state agencies have reached out to them. McConnell's office reached out to them.
We've reached out to them.
And I thought that yesterday was going to be the beginning of that. And then, like I said, at the last minute, they canceled that meeting. So, but we'll do
You
whatever.
have no idea when you're gonna be able to.
No good answer.
Well, I guess we can get a motorcycle and go across the bridge.
Well, yeah, it's not
Dirt
wide
bikes
enough.
dirt bikes are crossing the bridge, motorcycles are crossing the bridge. Anything that can get across that bridge is crossing the bridge. You know.
You bring up your delivery truck.
Yeah, we can't even get delivery.
They don't deliver for us. They can go everywhere but us. People say they're gonna steal our stuff if they leave it out on the bridge after dark.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I said, people say that they're gonna steal our stuff, like we order from Amazon. Amazon don't bring it to us. They bring it to the bridge and throw it on the bridge. And then people's telling us that they're gonna steal our stuff if it's out there after dark.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 13A, City County EMS finances. We kind of touched on that a little bit. And I guess I just want to continue the discussion we had a little bit earlier on the, at one time, there was a 911 committee. Do we want that committee started back up, or do we want that to be in conjunction with the EMS committee? That 911 committee, I don't think has met since 2000.
In the original order, it talks about it. But as long as I've been on the board, management planning, I don't remember any.
The revenue sharing committee is the only one I can think of.
The revenue sharing committee. And that was, all that was handing a check over.
Did we appoint anybody that revenue did?
Yeah.
This term? We did so, yeah.
The revenue,
Yeah, me and maybe Craig, I can't remember. Yeah. No, myself, I can't remember the other person.
maybe me, management
I
planning.
can't, I know it myself, I can't remember the other.
I think it may be myself, but we haven't met.
No, I haven't asked for it. But
I worked up before COVID.
I don't know if Magistrate Blanton and Magistrate Constables would want to just consolidate that with the revenue sharing issue. It is a revenue issue. I can't speak for you all, but if you're willing to look at it, I know you dug into that some, that issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've got that outstanding issue with the 911 invoices where we overpaid since the beginning of 2023. It's a sum about $78,000. Now, prior to that, we were paying invoices properly.
Just as a reminder, of course, it is special on these, that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Next item is 13B, and the relocation of the Sheriff's Department to the EOC building. Magistrate Miller had asked for this to be on the agenda. And I don't see him here.
I just think we, I'm glad you put it on the agenda, Judge. I mean, we need to, we're almost beginning of December, so I guess we need to know, number one, where we are on that. And I think there has to be a letter of intention sent, as I recall, the FEMA. I think we need to discuss what we want to do there, who's going to handle it, all that.
If I remember correctly, weren't we supposed to receive a closeout packet that told us everything that we needed to do?
Mary's here, so we put her on the spot. She's probably chomping at the bit to get back up with it.
I have several things to pass out to you that will answer questions that were brought up during the October 2014, because that was when it was originally mentioned. And Chris, you mentioned where we stand with the EOC disposition during comments. And then we would respond to thinking that perhaps those counties had already closed out. When I heard that, because even though I'm not here during the meetings, I'm listening, I'm still kind of in the late Judge Pace's mindset. He said, if you're not requested to be in the meetings, don't come to the meetings. You know, so I say it in the office generally and listen later or listen during the actual meeting itself. And that's what I did. So I'm going to pass this out. There's 10 here. Take one, pass it down, just like in school. actually the email. My email will be on the bottom, of course.
Excuse me, pull the microphone just a little bit closer to you.
Not unless I lean forward like this.
Use your singing voice. It carries.
Oh, Lordy. But when I heard the comments that were made, I immediately reached out to Jared Dean. Now, Jared, if you'll recall, was the gentleman that was here on March the 8th from Kentucky Emergency Management in his original capacity of being the CSET manager. Jared is no longer a CSET manager, but he is under contract with FEMA and is still a KYEM employee. So because that position has not officially been filled, Jared is still holding that position, as well as a gentleman named Tommy Adams. Tommy is a local guy from here in Winchester, but he's also with Kentucky Emergency Management. So when I heard the two questions from Magistrate Davis and Magistrate Constantopoulos, I knew the answers, but I wanted to get an official update, if you will, because over the months of time, the answers have changed for all of us within the CSET footprint. And all counties have kind of been confused and a little frustrated because originally closeout was going to be December of 24. They moved it forward to March of 25. And all of that hinges on all chemicals and residues being destroyed at the base in Madison County. That's what that time frame hinges on. So we were scheduled, of course, to have our meeting in September, in October, but that was canceled because of Helene. Because FEMA is our supervision on the FEMA level is through Region 4 of FEMA, which is out of Atlanta, Georgia. And that includes the Carolinas, that includes Georgia, that includes Florida. So when Helene hit, those powers that be went to the points of concern. And they canceled the IPT, which is a monthly meeting altogether with the CSET footprint. So we didn't get to really have that meeting in October like we wanted. They had the meeting in November, which was 2 weeks ago. And during that meeting, they said, well, we're probably going to have to push March 25 forward just a little bit because we're behind on the destruction. I had a meeting with the public information officer for CSET, who is out of Frankfurt, an employee of KYEM, on Tuesday. And other members of the footprint were there as well, or I should say a Zoom meeting as well. And they all said the same thing. We're kind of frustrated because our fiscal courts want to know where we stand. And they said, well, we can't give you a definite date. Perhaps when we have the meeting in December, we will be able to, but we just can't see where March of 25 is going to be that letter coming from the Army telling us closeout is officially beginning. So just to remind you, the official letter starts that closeout period, which is a 90-day period. And that's when you finalize and you finish everything. As far as doing the paperwork, I've been working on the paperwork for almost 2 years. And that's just simple stuff, like, the trucks that are at the fire department, the Lucas devices that are on the buggies, things like that, equipment and so forth. We kind of work on that little by little because there are tons of letters that they have to have. What are your intentions? Are you keeping this? Are you distributing that? We're keeping everything. I'm following suit with Mr. Everson's plans and his desire, whatever he worked for to purchase through the FEMA program for our county and city employees. We're going to keep it so they can continue to use it for the benefit and the safety of the public. That's the whole point of it. Now, if you look at the email, Jared has a link attached, which is part of the PR or the CFR, which is, of course, the Bible for the federal government, what they go by, how they take care of and dispose of properties and gifts that are given over the years. I printed off just that particular link, like in school again, take one, pass it down. And you can take that home and read over it. As I have encouraged Judge Yates to do for quite some time now, this is reaching over, this is not my responsibility as the CSET director. It's not even Steve's responsibility as my overseer, because the emergency management director oversees the CSET program. to make these decisions. This is where Attorney Elkins comes in, because he is our legal lead. He is our person who needs to be included and to go to the meetings and basically include us in saying, what do we need to do, what do we need to avoid, what's good going forward, and what's bad going forward. And I think at this point, that's what really needs to happen, because William is going to be our go-to person to say, you can legally do this. Caution, you shouldn't legally do that. Just like he does during a regular meeting, he will advise you, I'm just going to say, this is probably not a good idea to have this conversation or to engage, as Ernest responded to him earlier, for that reason, because he's your legal lead. He's your person you go to get the right answers. The beauty of practicing law is you're not required to know all the answers, right? But the beauty is that you know the sources to go to get the right answers. And Magistrate Davis can echo that, Dean, as well as he is also with a Juris Doctor. So that's really it, all I can tell you. I'm looking forward to the IPT meeting, which we will have in December. Hopefully they will give us a little bit more definite understanding of where we stand. I think the thing that really threw us off was Helene, but when you look to what has happened to our neighbors, I think that our being thrown off is nothing, and we'll go forward.
So nothing before March for sure, but we don't know when.
Yes, sir, and that's correct as of right now. For the letter.
For the letter,
from the Army.
right.
The surety letter.
The surety letter,
The surety
yes.
letter.
Yeah.
So are we saying that technically, even if we wanted to, we can't move into that building or anything before?
You can proceed, you can even do closeout if you want to.
Okay.
The closeout process terminates your reimbursements. So that's where you have to be cautious, and this is where William Elkins, Attorney William Elkins can help you. You have to make sure that if you dispose as you want, that's perfectly fine, but you gotta understand you've got an average of $2,000 a month to the Kentucky Utilities for the electricity. You've got WMU. You've got our internet service, our TV and so forth is provided by Spectrum under the Charter Communications.
So is the question going to be who budgets for that or who pays that? Is it?
I would think that would be one question that needs to be clarified, just for the sake of our current status of the financial situation.
Sure. Any more questions?
Well, with what Ms. Perry just said there, I mean, there's got to be some type of, my guess is that we're going to have, we need to know all that information as well, so then that way we can have an agreement in place between both bodies, because it benefits both bodies, correct? So
It benefits everybody.
Well, yes, but, you know, the funders, it's going to take over the expenses.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. That we would need to have some type of mutual agreement between both bodies on the recurring expenses from the CSEP program.
And not on your expenses, Daniel, but if you'll look at Jared's email, his last paragraph, you might all want to just kind of read that and absorb it. As I talked to him, I know initially he met with me, as we always meet in April. We meet with Charles Williams, who is the CSEP manager from FEMA, who's out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we meet with whoever your CSEP director or manager is from Frankfurt to prepare your budgets. So in April, both Mr. Williams, Charles Williams from Atlanta, as well as Jared Dean came and sat with us. Typically, your county judge executive meets with you. Judge Yates was with me that day. And he asked, Judge Yates asked point blank, you know, we've got someone in our community who is part of public safety that has expressed a desire to move in. And he said that is Burl Purdue, who is our sheriff. The initial response from Mr. Williams was, Well, as long as he's not incarcerating someone, but that would bring children to Department of Corrections, then that wouldn't be a problem. Their answers have morphed since then. The paragraph from Jared, and even a conversation I had with him over the phone yesterday, has somewhat changed. It's like everything else in this world. Everybody's afraid of liability. Ernest, you mentioned earlier being sued. That liability factor almost is our governing force in this world anymore. We're afraid of being in litigation. And who isn't somewhat intimidated by that? No one wants to or pursues that. But I think because of their apprehension, they're not being as transparent about things. That's all I can say. And if I ask some questions, they'll say, well, we can't answer that. That's up to your fiscal court. And I can't give you an example of what I mean. They put all the decision making in your hands, in the body. But I'm just getting a vibe of be cautious and be careful what you do with the building, that you don't find yourself being billed months or a few years later by federal government for what they feel is your cost. And I can't define it, William. I would lean on you completely for that, because that's the jurist.
Well, and just one other quick comment about the big picture here too, and from my perspective, Clark County is going to get a judicial center, supposedly within 5 years, and I'm hoping that process will start in January. I've been led to believe it would. So when let's say 5 years down the road, the judicial center is completed, basically the third floor, second floor of this building goes empty. The county will lose about $150,000 a year rent from AOC on this building and the annex. There'll be 2 offices, maybe even 3 downstairs in the basement that go empty. So going over to the annex, same situation. The second floor will almost be completely empty, and most of the first floor would be empty. So we're going to have a lot of empty space here to deal with, and the county's going to be losing a lot of revenue from this. So, and this is just a thought, since there's so much, I do believe the judicial center is going to happen, but I don't know, I don't feel real confident on what the timeline is going to be on the CSEP program. It constantly moves. So one thought, and this is just a thought, would we want to have a 5-year plan on how we're going to approach all this? Because like Ms. Wilson was saying, if we do take over the AOC building, number one, we've got to budget money to upgrade to maintain the building and all the equipment. There's some very expensive equipment over there. So, and that's the next question. Do we, for example, there's a 911 center or a dispatch center in that building. Do we want to maintain that equipment in case our police department 911 center gets struck by lightning, whatever, and has to go over there? So to me, this is the big picture. It's more than just doing one thing. There's a lot of moving parts to this. And the biggest one that faces me is how we're going to pay for everything. So I just want to throw that out there to be thinking about, because I'm almost certain the judicial center will be built. I don't know where, nothing like that, but I think the county needs to think about this, 5 years from now, all these finances, so that we don't get caught, kind of like this whole EMS thing, blindsided. So just want to throw that out there, something to think about.
Well, I think, I kind of dug into this quite a bit, discussed it a lot with the sheriff. I know there's a lot of unknowns with CSEP. I I get it, but let's look at the knowns. We know that the sheriff needs more room. He needs more room than what he's got over there in the basement of that judicial center. He needs a place that's fairly accessible for the public to come in, visit the sheriff's office, whether it's to pay a tax bill, people with the deputy, meet with sheriff, whatever the case may be. He needs adequate parking. We know that CSEP is going to end. I know this thing has dragged out, it seems like half a decade longer than it was supposed to, at least by now, but it is going to end at some point, like everything in life. So now whether that's January, March, April, May, whatever the case may be, it's going to end. So if we have an opportunity to move the SO into a very nice, modern building, I know Sheriff has said that he could accommodate the emergency management director maintaining an office in that building, and I hope that's what we would do. We need an emergency management director, and we need an office for that person, whoever is serving. And, we've got the war room over there. Obviously, if God forbid there was a natural disaster or catastrophe in this county, the sheriff is going to be deeply involved, whether that's going to be a natural disaster, whether that's going to be, some, unforeseen act of mass violence, whatever. The sheriff is going to be deeply involved in it, and all law enforcement would be, emergency management, fire, EMS, you name it. To me, it makes sense to have a department like the SO in the EOC though. It seems to me to be a natural fit. It has offices, sheriff needs offices. It has conference room, has the war room, communications. I mean, maybe there's some better use for it. If so, I'm all ears, but to me, it looks like that's the works, and the chief made some comments.
Real quickly, what Perry and I are so confused about is if you look in the last paragraph there, it says the sheriff's office is performing administrative duties, they will be allowed in the building. If you look there, but it cannot support law enforcement. And that's where it's confusing for us, because it says, it goes on to say, need to explain in a disposition how the request as to how they support public safety. I don't understand how law enforcement activity does not support public safety. That's where we're asking for a legal, not an opinion, I suppose, but we're confused as to what Code of Federal Regulations is trying to say there. How does law enforcement not support public safety?
And I think Chief and Mrs. Wilson are completely correct, Judge, and I would just suggest going forward that we ask the county attorney to work on this on behalf of Fiscal Court with FEMA and its representatives. And I appreciate, Mr. Dean's comments in the email. I don't know if he's correct or not. I'm sure he believes he's right. I'll take that on faith, but whether or not he's really right or not, I'm not going to take it on faith. This is where you get your attorney involved. And I would ask that going forward, Mr. Elkins be involved, intimately with this subject and the negotiations and all the approvals we're going to need to make whatever we want to do with this building happen. So that would be my thought. I mean, we're all sort of just kind of fumbling around in the dark until, we get some legal conclusion. And there will be a legal conclusion at some point.
Right.
That'll be the one we want. I don't know.
Yeah, the other 7 counties are kind of fumbling too, because I think I want to come full circle. There are 3 counties that have closed out annual, and those 3 counties are mentioned there in paragraph 1. Those counties were reception counties, which those counties were part of the program only to receive individuals if there was a situation where they had to massively evacuate. And those counties were equipped with thousands of beds and a storage area for personal items as well as for people to be housed. And obviously, with the rockets being dismantled in July of last year, there was not this need for a mass evacuation. So to save money, the Commonwealth, encouraged those 3 reception counties to go forward with closeout. And so that took place in June. Those 3 counties with Laurel and Jackson and Jessamine closed out and were finalized in June.
Now, I know Jackson County does have a building, an EOC building.
They all have an EOC.
Do you know what any or all of those 3 counties are doing with their building, or are they?
What those 3 had done, I do not know. I know I got a packet, which is how Laurel County disposed of their emergency operations center. That's what Jared sent us. He said you can kind of look at this and see how they did it. The letter is prepared by the county judge executive. It is that letter of intent profiling exactly what they have in the building, how they're going to pay for it, and what they're going to use it for. I can't tell you how they're paying for it. I know Jackson was financially strifed because they had a felonious situation a number of years ago through the CSEP program, and it took them a long time to crawl back up to where they were financially sound and secure. They did that. They accomplished that despite the drawback. But I don't know. That would be a question that I would think that Attorney Elkins could reach out to perhaps their county attorney and see what they did.
For me, 2 things, and then I think that'll be it for me, but when Jared originally came in and we had a discussion on it.
Yes.
One thing that is in this email that I kind of question is that, you know, when the packet was originally going to be sent to us, that we would have to do a letter basically stating all our intended uses for that building.
You still have to do the letter.
Right, but we have not done that.
Mhm.
This seems to be that they're just thinking that we're going to use it for an SO office, and we don't have, it's the way you articulate it on how the property is going to be used. And so, I don't know what's being conveyed to Jared in regards to that, but that makes me wonder if they know the full scope of utilizing the building to its fullest, content possible. Maybe they don't understand that we're going to be having the MA director still reside in the office in regards to the repeaters. But from the financial aspect of it, when Sheriff Perdue gave the presentation on his desire to relocate there, is that a lot of those building expenses and utilities and everything, he was going to be able to absorb in your budget. So it wouldn't come from the fiscal court aspect of it. But the question that we're going to have to narrow down to is the tower expense, the communications and all that. He's not going to absorb that. That's a benefit to both the city and the county, both the whole community, but us 2 bodies, that we do need to have some type of interlocal agreement on how we're going to fund that and be responsible for it.
Yes, that entails disposition as well.
Yeah.
You're correct. The Emergency Operations Center was the one that was profiled in today's agenda.
So my question to you, Ms. Perry, is can we get a list of what are the ongoing expenses are going to be once this program is dissolved, what the total expenses are, and what they're exactly for, that benefit both the city, or that the city and the county are going to be responsible
Well,
for?
sure, that's available to you at request through your treasurer. All of the EM lines are 5135. We've had this discussion before. In fact, I think I've given you kind of a profile of what our month-to-month expenses have been. And the best way to look at it is you look at the 1801s or the reimbursements that I do. Because remember, those reimbursements are run on a 30-day basis, a 30-day cycle. So you're literally going to see what we spent through the Emergency Operations Center, because it has its own number, just like it has its own assigned number through your county lines. So that's easy for you. You can ask Ms. Mary to pull that for you. You can see those. And her information is solid. She's the one who's seen them. She's the one who's distributing the payments. And you're welcome to come and look at the 1801s at the EOC. That would just be defined as 4 445 for me is the Emergency Operations Center. 448 for me is the money that we spend every month for the 2 storage buildings, which are a part of the property distribution as well. 192 has to do with the towers. 005 has to do exclusively with the phone bill for the EOC. So,
I'm aware that it's in the budget. I just, part of those expenses, some of those will not be, I can work with the treasurer and see what's there, but what I was pinpointing is what we know that's not going to be an expense moving forward.
you
Kind
mean
of separate,
disregarding
just
those
for
that was
instance,
on?
I'm talking about, for instance, phone bills that we know that we're not gonna have because we're not gonna have a phone for the CSAP.
And that would be a question for the occupier, whether it's shared per diem or whoever, to make that decision. Do I want 50 lines? Do I need 50 lines in the Emergency Operations Center? And that's actually been something I've brought to light before, that it needs to be discussed how we want to go back to AT&T and change that going forward. Because you're going to want to keep those lines, as Magistrate Davis was saying, you want to keep the Emergency Operations Center, which is actually that sometimes people refer to as the war room, but that's actually the Emergency Operations Center. You want to keep those lines open because if you have activation, and we've actually, Magistrate Davis, we've had to activate it numerous times just since I've been the director, and since I've worked there, we've activated it, whether partially or fully activated it. You might be surprised how many times we've had to do that. But do you want to keep the additional lines in the office? For example, every single phone base in that building has its own assigned number. They're all different. There's one line that you can call, you will get me, but that's actually the line number that we carried over from where the original format was. We were originally in the police department. So if you look at our bill, all of the numbers begin with a 9, but if you look at the main office, it's 745, because that was the original number. And that was something that Director Epperson requested. He said, when we carry over to the EOC, let's carry over our original number, because most people who called us before had dialed that number. And that's just one thing that I've encouraged it to take place. You know, let's decide, let's talk, not let's, because that's not my decision. But those who are in decision-making powers decide, do we want to keep all those lines? And which ones do we want to dissolve? And who we reach out to through AT&T? Because right now, you know, we're on a group with the fiscal court. We have shares on there, I think the shares on there. Are you on ours, Earl? No? Okay. County clerk is on there, judge's office is on there, county fire, county road. There's several county agencies that are coupled together on that one bill. And that was designed to defray excessive costing, to help us out financially. From what I understand, that was done long before BP. So, but that's something you could go back to that same entity and say, okay, we're going to downsize again because we don't no longer need all these lines in this particular agency. That's just one thing that you can do with that person or with that agency representative that will help defer the cost going forward. The other bills are going to be the same. You have to decide if you're going to do maintenance. Remember, I've mentioned that to you guys before as well. Because you have maintenance of the generators, and you have maintenance of the UPS, the uninterrupted power supply, which is located within the EOC. In fact, in the next few weeks, you're going to be seeing a new contract that we're going to be giving to you guys to vote on and give us permission to renew for the year for that particular contract. I have reached out to the company that does UPS for us, which is called Vertiv. I'm sure you've seen their vehicles driving through the community in the past. In the past, they had given us a biannual meeting, and I reached out knowing that we have to renew this contract for maintenance, and I said, hey, can we downsize instead of having biannual, having just one annual? And they've done that. They've given me a quote, and we'll put it on the regular agenda for you guys to review. But again, that is a decision that you have to make as a body. Do we want to maintain this equipment as we've done before, knowing it won't be reimbursed? But do we want to take a chance on the equipment failing and being responsible for probably a much higher bill to fix? The UPS equipment, for example, is 10 years old, going on 10, because it was installed saw when the building was dedicated, which was in 2015. But those are just things that you have to really decide, and that's why I really think, again, I push that Attorney Elkins is a good go-to, because he's going to be able to give you legal advice going forward. He's going to be able to interpret that CFR and give you sound advice, what's best for the county, and what things you need to avoid and look away from, because you don't want to have an issue, an unfriendly invoice in 2 years saying, hey, by the way, you owe us.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda is, excuse me, notes in the minutes, the indigent burial of Frank Burgess. Date of death was Thursday, October 31st, 2024. You have in the packet the Director of Finance monthly report for November and the Clark County salary, the anniversary increases for December of 2024. Next item on the agenda is approval of the Clark County Fiscal Court approving an order of the county clerk's budget for calendar year 2025.
Motion approved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item, 15B, is the approval of the Clark County Court approving the order of setting the salaries for the county clerk's deputies for calendar year 2025.
Motion approved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any discussion? Those in favor say.
One question, just one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, do they not require the check marks beside that, or is that, or just?
They should have been, I've got a new bookkeeper, I apologize. That should have been for everything, full-time salaries, overtime, part-time, vacation, sick leave, health insurance, and before retirement match.
And other.
Yes, I apologize for that.
So can we amend that just to check, make sure that it's indicated check, since our document doesn't have
Yes.
that in there?
Yes, thank you.
I thought so, but I
didn't see that.
Any other comments? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Item C, there'll be no action taken. The person was going to be hired, then they changed their mind. Next, item D is to approve the hiring of Aaron Witt to fill an open position of a full-time firefighter in the Clark County Fire Department.
Motion approved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Yes, second, any discussion?
How many does that bring us to at this point?
It'll be 30, sir.
30?
30, yes, sir.
Any other comments? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 16 is just information only. That's the Monday morning memo from the Industrial Authority for October 20th, November 24th. The Clark County Transit Report for October 2024. Constable reports from Constable McIntosh, Puckett, Toller, and Kennan. And the Winchester Clark County Parks Board agenda and their minutes. And the next item on the agenda would be to adjourn to closed session for personal, per KRS Chapter 61.8 PNF.
So moved. Second.
Then a motion second. We are in closed session.
Yes.